This is the untold story of how I actually became the president of 10X Health. So at the beginning of COVID, this was March 2020, I had a financial technologies company. And the company allowed a consumer to negotiate and rearrange their bad debt without going to collections. They could negotiate their debt with the loan originator. And the solution worked perfectly. We were working with MasterCard and a couple other processors, and honestly had a very promising future with this company. But at the beginning of COVID, the government extended forbearance, which meant that nobody had to pay back their loan interest for a period of time, thus making my solution obsolete. And so this company ended up failing, and I found myself unsure of what I wanted to do with my life. And I actually felt that there was something greater for me, and that I wanted to find a job that would help me be on purpose. But it wasn't a great time to start a business based on my skill sets. So I spent a lot of time researching, working with my mentor. And I did this exercise where I defined what are my skills, what's my experience, what are my interests, what's my purpose. And as a result of looking at this board all encompassing, my mentor and I defined, hey, either I'm going to be a fashion designer or I'm going to get into some form of preventative or functional medicine. The functional medicine route was more conducive to my overall goals. And so I started spending a lot of time researching this industry. Mind you, I had zero medical background. I was always in cars, finance, banking, accounting, sales in general. I had zero medical background, okay? But I just said to myself, I can learn that portion. There's got to be interesting opportunities in this field. So I started spending every waking moment researching jobs in the medical field. And I stumble upon functional medicine and I say, wow, this is amazing. There's hormone replacement therapy and stem cells and genetic testing and blood testing, but I don't really see any opportunities in this industry. So at the time, I just applied to, I think it was Zimmer, an orthopedic device company as a salesperson. I get down the sales process and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to solicit doctors in a hospital. What a boring job. Then I end up applying to a healthcare technologies company and I get hired at that job as a sales manager. And so I'm about to take that job, and 3 days before the job, they rescind the offer, later to find out that the owners of that company were fraudsters, and one of them had spent like the past 6 years in jail. So a blessing from God. But now I'm 2 months without a job, and I don't really know what to do, and I'm kind of wondering, like, what am I going to do with my life? And at this point during COVID, this is when I got extremely disciplined. I changed my habits. I started working out every day. I focused on my macros and my nutrition. I started praying and reading and journaling, working very closely with my mentor. This is when I just built a foundation. And over these 2 months, I became unstoppable as a person, even though I wasn't having any success or luck with my new career. So I'm telling everybody about what I'm learning and doing. And I'm telling all my friends that I'm trying to get into this functional medicine industry. And one of my friends says to me, hey, man, I just met this girl who's the assistant of a guy who's got a hormone replacement clinic up in Aventura. And it sounds like they're not doing that great, but you should talk to them. They need a sales manager. So I said, okay, great. Put me in touch. He does. I go up and have a conversation with this guy. We have a lovely, long conversation. He says, man, I'd love to work with you, but what do you know about medicine? And I said, nothing. I said, but I'll learn very quickly. Don't worry. I'm one of the quickest learners you've ever seen. He says, okay, well, I can't have you be a sales manager here if you don't know anything about, what we do yet. So start as a sales guy, and in 3 months, you can move to sales manager. And I said, look, brother, I know that I haven't had sales management experience before, but I'm not in a position to be a salesperson. I'm ready to lead people, and here's why. And he's like, yeah, but you haven't held a management position. I was like, brother, just give me a chance. He goes, start off in sales. I say, fine. So I start off in sales. After the first 2 weeks, I had outsold everybody. And I was selling a new product that we hadn't even really hit the market with yet. And I started to get, buy-in from a lot of the sales guys. And after 2 weeks, Mark says to me, all right, bud, next week you're going to be the sales manager. So week 3, I become the sales manager. And now I have to manage these 5, actually it was 9 total salespeople, 5 salespeople and 4 account managers. I have to manage them and build their trust, right? And I have to show them that, hey, I'm a lead from the front kind of guy and that I can actually help them. So this is what I do. I say, Mark, the business owner, let me have some time alone with these guys. Let me do a couple morning meetings by myself, and let me just get a vibe and a pulse on these guys. So I say, okay, guys, look, I promise all of you, I will do everything in my power to make the appropriate changes here to give you all the guidance and make all the changes that you need to be successful, everything. you all have to promise me that you're going to be open-minded to making the changes in the areas that are within your control so we can grow together. Deal? And they were like, yeah, fuck it, deal. Mind you, these were like Fred Flintstone old heads that were not changing for anybody. But I just started showing them that I was going to make some changes. So I said, guys, write down a list of everything that you don't like that doesn't work for you in the sales process, in operations, in marketing, in your collateral, in your incentives, everything. I want you to write it down. And we're going to take this list and I'm going to start picking things off one by one that are in my control. So I did. And so each day I started to make small little changes. I gave them a question-based framework script instead of this long written script. I started changing some stuff in the CRM. I started working with the marketing department to get them better collateral. I started making changes with the operations. I started giving them better role play and training. And I gave them a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And I said, guys, you're all going to read this book to learn about a growth mindset. And they're like, fuck you. And I'm like, no, seriously, read it. And then the next day, this is like the 4th or 5th day of me being sales manager. And I'm already making changes like crazy. I say, all right, guys, y'all are going to learn how to meditate. And they're like, meditate? What do we need to learn how to meditate? And I'm like, guys, believe me, I've made more in a month than you've all made in a year. And it's very obvious that I'm here to help you. Meditation was one of the most important things that I ever did to become aware of my thoughts and emotions, thus making me a better salesperson. Just try it. So for 10 minutes every single morning, we used a guided meditation app, and I started to teach them how to meditate. And as a result of doing this practice, after only 1 week meditating with them, it started to change their minds. And now they learned about a growth mindset and they started being open to these changes, and I started doing role play. And then I sat with each and every one of them and I said, guys, what are your 1, 3, 5-year personal, professional, financial goals? And after getting all of this information and starting to understand how they liked to be motivated and spoken to, I worked with the owner to change the incentive plans to have monthly bonuses, quarterly bonuses, and then gamify the system a little bit. Right? So now I'm getting some serious buy-in from these guys. And after only 2 months as sales manager, we're up like 40% up. And the owner's like, wow, this is amazing. Let's put some more money into leads. And after 3 months, he's like, you can take over marketing as well. I'm going to promote you to director of growth. So I think it was like 4 months in. Now I'm overseeing sales, marketing, and helping operations make adjustments because they were lacking as well. Now I start training everybody on sales. Operations director, front office people, everyone. The art of communication, sales, and persuasion is imperative in all positions in a business. I also said to everyone in the business, guys, untuck your shirts, start wearing sneakers, stop with the stuffy fancy shit. And I started playing Yo Gotti and Future and Drake, and I lightened up the environment. And on Fridays, I started, making things a little bit more fun and relaxing. And all of a sudden, we started crushing. And then we bring in a fractional CFO. And him and I together, this guy Frank, started making all the appropriate changes in the financials, in the marketing, in the operations, in the culture, in everything, so that we went from 4 million in annualized revenue on the day I started to, after a year and a half, 11.8 million, almost 12 million in annualized revenue. That's like a 300% increase in 1.5 years. Completely changed the culture, completely changed the business. And along the way, I had this one employee. And when I met him, he was a medical assistant, a nurse. He was a nurse within the company. He was making like $85,000 a year. And I said, brother, do you really want to be doing this, or do you want to, make more money and actually enjoy what you're doing? He said, I'd love to make more money. Can you give me a shot in sales? And I was like, yes, absolutely. But you're going to have to be bought into everything I teach you and really put in the work. It's not going to be easy. He said, okay, fine. He had no sales background. So I spent every waking moment with this kid on his personal development, on his morning routine, on why he has all these fears, on why he communicates a certain way, on why he doesn't follow up with leads, on why he always gives discounts. I trained him day in, day out, right? And he was no good at first. He went from making 80K to 240K by the end of that year, okay? Basically also 3X this kid. I spent so much time with this kid, and after having his best year of his life, he comes into my office, basically in tears, and says, hey man, there's something you don't know about me. And I'm like, what's up, brother? And he says, 2 years ago, I applied to be a firefighter at the Fort Lauderdale Fire Department, and it's my dream job, and they just sent me a letter saying that I was accepted into the academy, so I got to take this job. And I said, yeah, okay, Magic Mike, get the fuck out of here, bro. I just taught you a way to make $240K a year doing something that you love. You're going to go slide poles for $100K a year? What the fuck are you talking about? He's like, no, man, I'm serious. I got to do it. And I was like, hey, brother, all love. You know, I know that our paths will cross again, but do whatever you got to do. And I'm always here for you if you ever want your job back, because I love working with you. He says, yeah, man, of course, I'll stay in touch. So he leaves. I was pretty sad. He was one of my best sales guys. And everything goes on, right? I hired a new girl who took his job and started crushing. And about maybe 2 months go by, maybe less. And he calls me and he says, hey, man, I started doing IVs on the side with this company, Streamline Medical, and they just got bought out by Grant Cardone. And I'm doing IVs on tons of celebrities like you wouldn't believe. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on over there? And he's like, brother, they need you. They need someone like you to run the show over here and integrate the business with the medicine. And I'm like, well, tell them that you know the most uniquely qualified individual in the country that literally just built and scaled a technology system and a sales platform and culture of a business to be able to handle all 50 states and scale, and I can help them do the same thing. Tell them. 3 hours later, I get a call. It's Brandon Dawson's wife, Natalie. She says, we'd love to have a conversation with you and talk to you about employment opportunity here at 10X. I say, great, amazing, when? And she's like, well, we're busy, for the next 2 weeks, but in 2 weeks on a Saturday, come at 1 o'clock. I say, okay, great, over to Grant's office. I say, okay, great. So during that 2 weeks, I submit all these leads and I shop their sales system. I'm funnel hacking them under fake names. And I tell my new sales girl, I say, hey, Morgan, go apply at 10X Health as a salesperson and see what the sales manager knows, the hiring manager knows. And I want you to ask these questions, right? So now, when I show up to my interview at 10X, not only have I researched everything about Grant, Gary Brecka, Brandon Dawson, Natalie Dawson, the executives, Jeff and Dwayne. I know everything about all of them, but I've already funnel hacked them. I know how their salespeople talk. I know what they talk about. I know how they sell. I also know what process there is within the company and what the hiring process looks like because I put Morgan through that process. I came so equipped to that meeting. It was absurd. It was a 15-minute interview in which Brandon asked me what I recently did. I explained in 3 minutes everything that I had just done because I knew he's a very busy guy, very successful, short attention span. I explained and then I asked him questions about certain facets of the business that only I knew because I had been doing this for a year and a half. And he, just like anyone else in this new industry, was like, I'm not sure the answer to those questions, but it sounds like we need you. And I said, yes, of course you need me. And he says, what position do you want? I said, president. He looks at Jeff and Dwayne and says, guys, I got to get on stage and speak at this event, but figure out his comp and his equity. He said, Wade, tell me what you want for comp for the year and equity, and we'll figure it out. Can't wait to work with you. Peace. That was it. So I go back with my mentor and we structure what we think is fair compensation and fair equity. And I go back and forth for about 3 weeks. After these 3 weeks, I'm in Costa Rica and I finally get my favorable package. Comp, they said, yes, absolutely, which I thought was an absurd number at the time. Equity, we settled in a perfectly fair agreement. And I remember I'm there with my family in Costa Rica and I'm in this little ghetto jungle area. And they send the new contract through and it's everything that I've asked for. All the non-compete is good. Everything is perfect. And I'm sitting there with my dad and I'm like, hey, Dad, we got to pull over on the side of the road. I got to sign my contract right now. And I just remember the joy on my parents' face to, 3 years before being $100,000 in credit card debt, selling cars, addicted to drugs, fucked up life, to have grown into a sober, healthy, fit, altruistic, stoic, bulletproof mindset businessman with all this acumen, just having negotiated my new contract as president of 10X Health. I sign it in a fucking dirt road in Costa Rica, send it back, and that was it. I get back from Costa Rica, and 2 weeks later, I say, hey, Brandon, there's only one stipulation. Well, this happened before I signed the contract. I said, we're going to have to buy the company that I just built. So within 3 days of me being president of 10X Health, I already had introduced Brandon to the old owner of the company, and we had sent a letter of intent to buy that company within 2 weeks. And within 3 months of me being president of 10X Health, we acquired the old company that I built during COVID and brought on all those employees that I personally developed and changed all of their lives, the culture, their structure, everything, and then integrated that company, Health Gains, into 10X. And then we went from 9 million in annualized revenue to 50 million in annualized revenue in the 1 year that I was president of 10X Health. Just the most glorious run. And I'll never forget the day that Brandon and I purchased Health Gains and went back into Health Gains. And he says to me, this has got to be a pretty surreal moment. Building a company, leaving, becoming president of a larger company, and then acquiring the company that you just completely changed and built. How does this feel? And I was like, bro, not to mention that. I mean, as you know, my story, only a couple years ago, I was 100K in credit card debt, so fucked up, hopeless, almost gave up on life. But to be here only 3 years later, man, it's just God, bro. It's just God. So for all of you wondering, can you overcome the situation that you're going through and can you be something great? Seek God, focus on yourself, get better every day. The results are going to come, not on your time, on God's time. Love you all.